This is chapter 35, section 5, and this section of reading had two pieces from the book. The first was titled A Second Front from North Africa to Rome, and the second was D-Day, June 6th, 1944. And so this first slide is over that first section about the opening of a second front. And so there are two perspectives in consideration here. I guess both are guided by the Soviet Union's desire to have the Allies attack Germany somewhere so that they can have some pressure relieved from the east, because at the time the Germans are able to largely focus on the attack from the sorry, I just got a phone call. So the Germans are able to focus the attack largely on what is taking place in the Soviet Union, whereas if the second front is open, their troops, resources, supplies, all of that will have to be split to some degree. So the United States wants to alleviate pressure from the Soviet Union by going through Europe, specifically going through France straight at Germany. Britain, however, doesn't like that plan because they want to move the fighting farther away from Great Britain, and France wouldn't be far enough for their comfort. So Britain advocates for a soft underbelly approach, which the soft underbelly is North Africa, because it is it's given that nickname because it is less heavily fortified, and then go through Italy to get to Germany. So we're going to attack in North Africa, where Germany and Italy holds some French-controlled territory. The Allies will plan is to take that and then go up through Italy and into Germany. So if you can picture kind of the map of that part of the world, that gives you some perspective. And so ultimately what is chosen is the British option, the soft underbelly approach. And so the leader of this push is General Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and he leads a mixture of around 400,000 troops. I believe your textbook said British, French, American, and Canadian troops are involved in this fight in North Africa, and they were able, in November of 1942, to wage a campaign against the Germans and are able to push the Germans out of Africa by May of the following year in 1943. Around this same time, Roosevelt and Churchill are meeting to make plans for the war. So this is January 1943. They meet at the Casablanca Conference, and we're going to talk about several different conferences. What is important that comes out of the Casablanca Conference is an agreement to seek what is called unconditional surrender from Germany. And this is a big deal because this is essentially promising to the Soviet Union that there will be action by the British and Americans to halt German aggression, but it also gives reasons for the Germans to not give up, because if the goal is unconditional surrender, they're not going to be involved in any peace terms or peace talks based on what Churchill and Roosevelt lay out at this conference. And so the Allies, while they are successful in North Africa, they do begin their move up into Italy with this soft underbelly approach, and are able to successfully overthrow Mussolini and gain control of Italy in September of 1943. And so Mussolini's body is publicly displayed, and this comes into play later when Hitler decides to make a choice that he does in 1945 because of what he saw happen, where Mussolini was essentially publicly disgraced. So while Italy has surrendered, the German troops within Italy have not. And so as the Allies are attempting to push northward into Italy, German troops dig in, and they get bogged down because of the mountainous, cold regions of Italy. And if you can picture Italy in your head, it is a relatively narrow country. So in terms of defending it, if you establish a strong line, it's going to be extremely difficult for an enemy to break through. And so this Italian push gets bogged down about halfway up the Italian peninsula, and eventually Italy becomes just kind of a side story, specifically once D-Day, the attack, is launched, which we'll talk here in a moment. It's basically just a distraction at this point. So evaluating the British and American decision to take the soft underbelly approach, there are positives to it. It does divert some German troops and supplies, which that is one of the goals that it accomplishes. It also is able to eliminate one of the three original combatants of the war. So Italy's gone, and Roosevelt even mentioned, you know, 1 down, 2 to go. So Italy is gone. Now Japan and Germany are left. Negatives of this approach: while it did divert German troops and supplies, it also diverted Allied troops and supplies. So it delayed the eventual invasion of Europe, the D-Day invasion. And it also gave Russia extra time to fall further into Eastern Europe, to be pushed around more by Germany. This next slide is the start of the next section, which is titled, the slide title, D-Day, June 6th, 1944, and I referenced it on the previous slides. But the plan for D-Day is put in motion in late 1943 when Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin meet in Tehran, Iran, to lay out their plans. And unintentionally rhymed there. And so this conference lasts from November 28th to December 1st in 1943. If you remember from a few weeks ago, you watched a video about FDR in World War II, and the Tehran conference was a focus on the last part of that video, where we saw the relationship between Churchill and Churchill and Roosevelt, and eventually Stalin is introduced into that, and how Roosevelt poked fun at Churchill to get Stalin on his side. Nonetheless, at the Tehran conference, there are preparations made for the cross-channel invasion of France that is going to be a massive undertaking. Essentially, more than 3 million troops and supplies are readied on the British island, I should say, and the United States are the ones providing the majority of those troops. And so for that reason, command of the overall mission is given to American General Dwight D. Eisenhower, and they decide to pinpoint the attack on region of France called Normandy that is held by Germany. So again, they're attacking from Britain across the English Channel into France, but they're attacking France because Germany controls France. And you'll be watching a video, or we'll have started a video this week that outlines that attack. Here are the Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill at the Tehran conference. And again, you saw that detailed in the video a few weeks back. And so Germany at this point is expecting an attack to take place in France, but they are tricked into expecting the attack to come in a far more northern region of France. And so when the attack is launched, the Allies attack from the air as well to block German reinforcements and cut supply lines to the German troops. So Germany is forced to retreat in August 1944, and as they do that, American and French troops sweep across northern France, gaining ground and reclaiming French territory. By late August of 1944, Paris, France is liberated, and so we've freed France from German control. And then by October of 1944, the Allies start to push actually into Germany. So not only have we now pushed Germans back to Germany, but we're starting to push towards that unconditional surrender of Germany. And here is a map of Germany. We might discuss this more in class. So that concludes your chapter 35, section 5 notes.